Welcome back to Shocking Stories, the place where we dive deep into the most perplexing and chilling true crime cases that challenge everything we think we know about justice. Today we're exploring a story that crosses decades and blurs the lines between memory, truth, and the human mind. Imagine a man suffering from Alzheimer's disease suddenly confessing to a murder committed 30 years ago, a confession that reignites a cold case and sends investigators on a journey through time, memory, and mystery. This is The Memory Thief. Our story begins in Houston, Texas, in 2013. Carolyn Krisen Wilson, a 71-year-old woman battling Alzheimer's disease, made a confession that stunned her family and the legal system alike. For years, Carolyn had denied any involvement in the disappearance of her husband, Roy McCaleb, who vanished in 1985 under suspicious circumstances. At the time, Carolyn told police that a barefoot homeless man was responsible for Roy's death. But decades later, in a rare moment of lucidity or confusion, she signed a judicial confession admitting to shooting Roy. The confession sent shockwaves through the community. The victim's family was devastated and outraged, feeling justice had been delayed and complicated by Carolyn's mental decline. Yet the court accepted her plea deal, sentencing her to 6 months in prison, a sentence many considered too lenient given the gravity of the crime. Carolyn's deteriorating health and the lack of other evidence made the case controversial and complex. This case raised profound questions. How reliable is a confession from someone with Alzheimer's? Can a person with severe memory loss truly understand the consequences of their admission? How do investigators separate fact from the fog of a failing mind? Alzheimer's disease is a progressive neurological disorder that impairs memory, cognition, and behavior. Patients often experience confusion, disorientation, and difficulty distinguishing reality from memory. This condition challenges the criminal justice system in unprecedented ways. The story of Carolyn Krisen Wilson is a real-life example of these challenges, but it's not the only one. Fast forward to recent years, where another man with Alzheimer's disease unexpectedly confessed to a murder committed 30 years prior. The man's name remains confidential due to privacy laws, but his story captivated investigators and the public alike. Diagnosed with Alzheimer's in his late 60s, the man lived in a care facility in a Midwestern city. One day, during a lucid moment, he confessed to killing a man in a fit of rage 3 decades earlier. The crime had gone unsolved, with the victim's body never found and no suspects identified. Police were initially skeptical, given the man's condition, but the details he provided were remarkably precise: locations, victim descriptions, and events no outsider could have known. This confession reopened a cold case that had baffled detectives for decades and challenged everything they thought they knew about memory and truth. Detectives assigned to the reopened case began cross-referencing the man's memories with old files, witness statements, and archival evidence. They discovered that the victim was a local businessman who had disappeared mysteriously in the late 1980s. The man's confession included the location of the burial site, a remote wooded area outside the city. A search was conducted, and skeletal remains were found, confirming the victim's identity through dental records. The discovery was a breakthrough. For decades, the victim's family had lived with unanswered questions, haunted by his disappearance. Now, thanks to the Alzheimer's patient's confession, they finally had closure. Further investigation revealed a tangled web of motives behind the murder: jealousy, financial disputes, and long-buried family secrets. The Alzheimer's patient's confession became the key to unraveling decades of silence and bringing justice to a forgotten crime. But the case was far from straightforward. The man's cognitive decline complicated legal proceedings. Could he stand trial? Was he competent to understand the charges against him? The court had to balance compassion for his condition with the need for accountability. Legal experts debated the implications of prosecuting someone with dementia. Some argued that diminished capacity should lead to alternative sentencing focused on care rather than punishment. Others insisted that justice demanded consequences regardless of mental state. The court ultimately ruled for supervised care combined with legal accountability measures tailored to the man's condition. This delicate balance reflected the complexity of the case and the evolving understanding of Alzheimer's in the justice system. The memory thief case sheds light on the fragile nature of human memory and the complexities of the justice system when dealing with cognitive impairment. Memory is not a perfect recording. It is reconstructive and vulnerable to distortion. Alzheimer's disease accelerates this process, blurring lines between past and present, fact and fiction. Experts explain that confessions from Alzheimer's patients can be influenced by confusion, suggestion, or attempts to please caregivers. This raises ethical questions about the use of such confessions in court. This case also highlights the importance of cold case investigations and advances in forensic science that can bring closure even decades later. As we reflect on the memory thief, we are reminded that memory is both fragile and powerful. It can conceal secrets for decades, yet reveal truths that change lives forever.